From ancient famines to world wars, societies have faced hardships for centuries, and those who prepared survived. What can we learn from their experiences? In this video, we'll uncover valuable lessons from history that every modern prepper should know. Let's get started. Let's start with ancient Egypt, where life revolved around the flow of the Nile River. For centuries, the Nile provided fertile soil and abundant harvest, but every so often, the floods wouldn't come. In those years, crops failed, famine loomed, and the future looked grim. But the Egyptians had a strategy. They built massive granaries and stockpiled grain during good years, ensuring they'd survive when nature didn't cooperate. That foresight saved countless lives, showing that abundance today doesn't mean you can let your guard down for tomorrow. The Romans took a similar approach when it came to water. Rome's engineers built aqueducts and cisterns to bring water from miles away and store it for times of drought. It wasn't enough to rely on natural rainfall. They ensured that even if the skies stayed dry, they'd still have access to water. They weren't gambling on luck, they were building resilience. These ancient strategies are a powerful reminder that food and water storage is the foundation of modern prepping. Whether it's a natural drought, a man-made crisis, or even something as common as a supply chain breakdown, having stored resources will keep you ahead of the crisis. Ask yourself, if access to food and water were cut off tomorrow, would you be able to ride it out, or would you scramble with everyone else? The stock market crash of 1929 was just the beginning. What followed was a decade of economic devastation. Banks failed, jobs disappeared, and families across the US were thrown into survival mode overnight. Those who made it through didn't have secret tricks, they made do with what they had. Every penny was stretched, every scrap reused, and backyards turned into vegetable gardens. For many, bartering became a lifeline, exchanging skills and goods when money was tight. If someone fixed the neighbor's fence, they might get a basket of eggs in return. It was a lesson in community resilience and self-reliance. The 2008 financial crisis was a reminder that economic hardship isn't a thing of the past. While it didn't hit as hard as the Great Depression, people who had emergency savings and stocked essentials found it much easier to weather the uncertainty. Many others were caught off guard, relying on credit or struggling to keep up with rising costs. The key takeaway? Frugality and resourcefulness are powerful tools. You don't need to wait for an economic collapse to start practicing these skills. Building an emergency fund, learning to barter, and storing key supplies are steps you can take now to prepare for both personal setbacks and larger financial crises. The question is, if your income stopped tomorrow, how long could you stay afloat? World War II wasn't just fought on battlefields, it was also fought at home, where every citizen had to contribute. As resources like food, fuel, and rubber were redirected to the war effort, rationing became the norm. People were given ration books that limited how much sugar, meat, and gasoline they could purchase each week. The goal was simple: conserve what you had and use it wisely, because the war effort came first. But people didn't stop there. To stretch their food supplies, many families planted victory gardens, small backyard plots that produced vegetables and herbs to supplement their rations. These gardens didn't just provide food, they gave people a sense of control and self-reliance during a time of global uncertainty. The lesson from World War II is clear. Managing resources carefully makes a huge difference when supplies are limited. Today, we might not have government rationing, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't prepare for shortages. Growing even a small garden, whether in your yard, on a balcony, or indoors, can help ensure you have fresh food when the system can't provide. And just like in World War II, being proactive today can mean the difference between comfort and crisis down the line. During the Cold War, the threat of nuclear war loomed over daily life. It wasn't a question of if it would happen, but when. This fear gave rise to fallout shelters, bunkers stocked with food, water, and medical supplies. Families across the US built these shelters in their backyards or basements, hoping they'd never have to use them. Meanwhile, school children practiced emergency drills, ducking under desks in preparation for an attack, and civil defense sirens were tested regularly. The idea of being ready to evacuate or shelter in place became second nature. One of the most terrifying moments of the Cold War came in 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis. For 13 days, the world stood on the brink of nuclear war, and people feared that an attack was imminent. It was a stark reminder of how fast things can escalate and how important radiation preparedness really is. Even in peacetime, events like Chernobyl in 1986 reminded us that nuclear risks don't just come from war. Accidents can happen too. The lesson: having an evacuation plan and radiation protection supplies like potassium iodide tablets could save your life in extreme situations. It's better to have those things ready and never need them than to scramble when it's already too late. The COVID-19 pandemic took the world by surprise. One day everything felt normal, and the next, store shelves were picked clean, leaving many without essentials. Panic buying spread as fast as the virus itself, exposing just how fragile our modern supply chains really are. Items like toilet paper, masks, and disinfectants became hard to find, and those who prepared in advance avoided the chaos altogether. This wasn't the first time a pandemic caused upheaval. A similar scenario unfolded during the Spanish flu in 1918, which infected millions worldwide. Back then, communities learned the importance of hygiene, isolation, and quarantine to slow the spread. The tools were different, but the strategy was the same: stay ahead of the outbreak to protect yourself and others. The takeaway from both pandemics is simple: health preparedness isn't optional. Waiting until disaster strikes is too late. Stock up on medical supplies, hygiene products, and non-perishable food now, so you're not caught off guard when the next crisis hits. Ask yourself, if pharmacies and stores closed tomorrow, would you have what you need to get by? In 2005, Hurricane Katrina tore through the Gulf Coast, flooding entire neighborhoods and leaving people trapped without food, water, or medical supplies. Many believed help was on the way, but days passed with little government assistance. Thousands were stranded, desperate for basic necessities, revealing the harsh truth: government aid isn't always reliable when disaster strikes. For some, it was a wake-up call. Self-reliance became essential to survival. Fast forward to 2021, and we saw similar failures here during the Texas winter storm. Millions were left without power, heat, and water, some for days in freezing conditions. People who relied solely on the grid quickly found themselves in dangerous situations, cold, hungry, and scrambling for alternatives. The storm exposed how fragile our infrastructure can be, even in modern times. These events teach us that waiting for help isn't a plan. Having an evacuation strategy and backup energy sources is non-negotiable when the grid fails. Whether it's a generator, solar panels, or a wood stove, having multiple options gives you control when everything else falls apart. Because when the power's out and the roads are closed, it's up to you to keep yourself safe and warm. In 1977, New York City plunged into darkness for 25 hours. What started as a simple power outage quickly spiraled into chaos. Looting, arson, and riots spread across multiple neighborhoods, with businesses destroyed and law enforcement overwhelmed. It quickly became a stark reminder of how civil unrest can ignite when the lights go out. Sometimes it only takes hours for order to unravel when infrastructure fails. Today, we see a more subtle but equally concerning example in California's rolling blackouts. Heat waves, wildfires, and energy shortages leave millions of residents without power for hours or even days. While not as chaotic as the New York City blackout, these events highlight how vulnerable we are to the grid failures, even in modern times. The lesson: backup power and home and personal security are essential when the grid goes down. Whether it's a solar generator, battery backup, or extra fuel, having a plan ensures you stay comfortable and secure. And just as importantly, preparing your home and yourself with security measures like cameras, reinforced doors, and self-defense tools can help deter crime when things get tense. History offers us lessons if we're willing to learn. From stockpiling food and water to managing health crises and preparing for blackouts, every event we cover today has something to teach us. By taking these lessons seriously, you'll be better prepared for whatever the future holds. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and share it with others. Join the Texan Prepper community by hitting that subscribe button and leave us a comment down below. Make sure to keep an eye out every week for another video on emergency preparedness. Stay safe, keep prepping, and I'll see you on the next one.